This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome everyone to Iggeres HaRamban. We're continuing in the holy words of the Ramban, Nachmanides, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, which of course the whole letter is predicated on the important practice of Tisnahig Tamid Ledaber Kol Dvarecha B'Nachas. Accustom yourself always to speak all your words gently. The Ramban then said that through humility it will arise in your heart the midah of yira, because you will pay attention always to think where you came from, where you're going, and that one is worms and maggots in their lifetime, certainly in their death, and before whom one has to give an accounting, before the Melech HaKavod, before the king who all kavod belongs to. Now, the Ramban says, "V'chasher tachshav es kol eila," when one contemplates all of this, tira mibayracha, you will fear the Creator, the tishmar min achet, and you will be careful from sin. Now, the Mesilas Yesharim writes in Parak Chav Hey that the concept of understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Hashem's presence and Hashem's existence and Hashem's hashgacha does not come easily, but it requires hasmada and diligence. The Rav Goldberg cites the Reishis Chachma, who says that it is good for a person to make a reminder for what the punishment of kases and the punishment of gaiva and the maila of anava to read daily. This is a very important trick, says the Reishis Chachma, because someone who's a fool, who wants to suffer a great loss because of a very small benefit, will allow his anger to get the best of him. Because at the time of anger, a person forgets all of the oinshim and all the milos that he could lose in kas, and therefore it is important for a person to create a certain reminder, to be attentive to what the ramifications of kas are. Now I want to share with you what Rav Goldberg cites from Rav Shach, because there's a very interesting observation over here. The Ramban is learning that through humility and tikkun amidos, specifically anava, basically until this point, the Ramban says train yourself to speak gently, and by doing so, you will be saved from kas. Like the Ramban says, "Tisnai tamid l'davar kol derech menachas, u'v'zat tinatzim menakas, v'chasher tala libcha, v'chasher tinatzim menakas, tala libcha midas anava," and through anava you'll come to yira, and you will fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which sounds like through humility one comes to fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, in the Sefer Penine Rabbeinu Avi Ezri, Peninim on Rab Shach, it quotes Rab Shach always spoke that true emunah can only come to someone who thinks straightly, with yashrus. Whatever kfira there is in the world comes from people who are krum, who are crooked. And Rav Shach brought the following raya. If you look in Parshas Bereishis on the pasuk Naaseh Adam, so Rashi says, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu mean? Naaseh Adam. Who's Hashem talking to? The Rebbe Hashem made Adam himself. What's the Naaseh Adam? So Rashi says, even though there's a makom for an apikaris to rebel, the pasuk does not refrain from teaching derech eretz and anava that a superior should ask the advice of the inferior. So Rav Shach asks, what's going on over here? What's more of a chashava limud? In other words, if you were a Rebbe in a classroom, is it more important to teach that Hashem exists? Or is it more important to teach humility? In other words, what's better for someone to be a Jew who observes all the mitzvahs and has good midos and is a kaifer, or a Jew who believes in Hashem, however, he is a he has a Bal Midos Rois. In other words, says Rav Shach, what's going on over here? Here we could teach one of two lessons. We could write Esa Adam, I will make man, and that would imply that there's one God, although one may not learn the lesson in humility. On the other hand, you could learn Nasa Adam, and you could teach a lesson in humility, but you wouldn't necessarily know that there's one God. I mean, you would think, I think most people would think it's more important to teach there's one God than to teach a lesson in humility. So by the way, the Brisker Rav, the Beis Halevi, is reputed to have said that from this Rashi you see that if you could send your son to one of two yeshivas, one yeshiva they learn more Torah, the other yeshiva they have better midos. In other words, one yeshiva they're bigger lamdanim, the other yeshiva they're more bale midos. You should send to the yeshiva that has better midos, because clearly it's more valuable to teach a lesson in midos than to teach a lesson in Emunah b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And Rav Shach says a pshat, and actually I must admit that in the upcoming Sefer on Bereshis, we wrote this pshat based on the Stipler, but now I saw for the first time that the Rav Shach says this pshat. It's quoted in the Penine Rabbeinu Avi Ezri. Rav Shach says, no, you have no proof at all that midos toivos are better than believing in Hashem. No, it doesn't mean it's better. But you know why it's more important to teach a lesson in midos? Because if you don't have good midos, you're going to be a koifer be'ikr. It's not that midos are more important than belief in Hashem. No, belief in Hashem is more important than midos. But if you don't have midos, you're going to be a koifer anyway. And Rav Shach says as follows. He says, so, if the Torah wants to teach Derech Eretz somewhere else, it could do that. Says Rav Shach, the truth is, Emunah is mukhrach. And if there's any kefira, it only comes from gaiva, because when a person thinks that he's the center of the universe and there's no other force in the world other than him, this is a direct confrontation and contradiction to Hashem's existence. Meaning, what Rav Shach is saying is not that in a value system, good midos are more important than good deos. It's just that if a person is a Baal Gaiva, it will lead to improper belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Gemara tells us, Hashem says to the Baal Gaiva, there ain't enough room for the two of us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the Baal Gaiva, Ein ani v'hu yachal lador ba'ilamai. The Stipler writes that when Bachram would come to him with Shilas and Emunah, the Stipler would say, don't go to Kiruv seminars, don't learn Sifrei Philosophia, instead work on your Gaiva, because when a person's a Baal Gaiva, the Shechina departs, and when the Shechina departs, so a person has all kinds of Shilos in Emunah. This is what the Ramban is saying, that once a person acquires the Midah of humility, they will fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they will be careful from sinning. Rav Goldberg cites the following pshat, that what does it mean you will fear from sin? We're talking about yiras chet that comes from yiras haroimimus. We're not talking about fear of punishment. We're talking about fear of being in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that a person will distance himself from chet out of kavod HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That how could a person thinks to themselves, how could a Basar Adam allow themselves to go against the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The Gra writes in the Tzafra Tzniusa that if a person would know that Hashem's eyes are focused on him, he would never sin. So this is what the Ramban is saying, that when a person acquires the humility, where they recognize the greatness and the majesty of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they will be afraid to sin, not afraid of punishment, but afraid of, they'll be in awe of how can they come to violate the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, we'll hold it over here. Bez Hashem will pick it up tomorrow. Everyone's invited to join us tonight, 9:15. We may change the timing next week back to 5 o'clock, and we'll keep that Zman for a number of months until the fall. But probably next week we're gonna switch to 5 o'clock. Okay, Rabbi Say, Kol Tov, be well.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.